Hello and welcome to SAE Tomorrow Today. I'm your host, Grayson Brulte. On today's episode, we're absolutely honored to have Joe Leifer, Senior Product Manager, Autonomy, John Deere. On today's episode, Joe and I discussed optimizing the farm, the environmental impacts of how farmers are great stewards of the land and they're passing land on to next generations, and the role that autonomy will play in the farms of the future. At John Deere, it's all about optimizing the farm and doing right by farmers. We hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to the podcast, Joe.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here, and I got to give a shout out to the marketing team at John Deere. I love the new tagline, "Nothing runs like a Deere autonomously." That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, right? It's a play on some of our heritage and where we're going in the future.
Because you got the iconic logo, the iconic green that everybody knows. We had Al Savage on a previous episode, and he talks about when he travels and he wears the John Deere hat, everybody wants to talk to him. So it's an iconic brand. When you look at John Deere, it's a global company. Agriculture is a global industry. The world population is projected to grow to nearly 10 billion by 2050. Food demand is going to rise. We're having raising commodity prices. How can John Deere and the company's long-term commitment to innovation and technology prepare the world for this exponential growth of population and food demand?
Yeah, great question, right? And great setup. I mean, ultimately, what we're focused on as a company is providing and developing new products to help farmers be more profitable on their farm, be more sustainable. And they do that through ultimately growing more food with less inputs on the land that they have, right? Land is a precious commodity, and we see less and less farmland every year. And so how do we grow more food on the land that we have to feed that growing population that you mentioned? And so that's what we're focused on, is how can we use new technology and innovation to continue to bring new products to those farmers that create value and ultimately create more food.
Land is a precious commodity, because you always hear the thing, well, you want to buy in the ocean because that's where you want to be, and homes on the ocean only go up. But it's a very valid point about farmland. If you look, let's look in Iowa, for example. Des Moines expanding. That farmland is shrinking. So that's a very valid point. When you look at all the John Deere innovations, you look at the acquisitions, you acquire Blue River for the precision see and spray, acquire Bear Flag Robotics with the great autonomy. Do you see more startups pursuing the opportunity? Because as the land shrinks, you have to, quote unquote, optimize the land that you're working on, since startups are really good at focusing on optimization?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one, agriculture is just a super exciting place to be, as John Deere and with our startups that we acquired, Blue River and Bear Flag Robotics. We also believe that we can lead in some of this technology in the agricultural space, right? In-field autonomy as an example versus on highway. So it's an exciting space to work. There's monumental challenges that we have. And the technology that is coming online today, computer vision, some of these advanced controls for hydraulic and electrification, can be put to use on a job, on a farm field, essentially tomorrow. And so that's what I think is starting to draw more startups to the space. Is they see not only what John Deere is doing, but what some other innovators in the space are doing. And it becomes a point where we could commercialize this product today. Let's go work in this agricultural space. And then for Deere, right, we're always looking for how do we partner and work with some new innovative companies to bring that value to farmers on a global scale.
I want to give a shout out to the Deere team overall, because Deere's now had the announcement several weeks ago. You're investing in electrification. And if you look at the heritage of John Deere, there's always 2 and 3 steps ahead. Wall Street has consistently rewarded you for leading on innovation, but you hit the most important nail on the head: commercialization. That is the absolute key, and that's something that John Deere does really well. When you look at commercialization, you look at a majority of the farms in the United States are owned by families. They go down from generation to generation. Dad was a farmer, son becomes a farmer. If you look at called the old school apprenticeship program, how are those farmers approaching autonomy? Are they looking at it as a way that they can expand or optimize the land, or how are they approaching autonomy?
Yeah, so really we've developed autonomy at the request of farmers. And farmers face incredible challenges every growing season, and time being one of those biggest challenges. And so how do I get the job that I need to do today, tomorrow done? Generally, I have to do, 2 to 3 things at the same time. And then how do I find enough people to help me farm this land or run these jobs, run the equipment? And so farmers are asking for other ways to add additional automation, as well as then they've been requesting autonomy here in the last several years. And so that's where, as Deere and Company, we got really serious about it in 2019. How do we bring true in-field autonomy to farmers to be another tool in their toolbox to go tackle the jobs that they have to do that day? And so for the first time, as we revealed at CES, we're giving the farmer the opportunity to step out of the cab, out of that tractor seat, and then they can go do something else. It could be, a higher value-added job on the farm, could be spending time with family, could be doing something in the community. But ultimately, it starts to empower them to be a force multiplier and let them really control their time and what they focus on the farm.
I mean, it goes along with John Mellencamp and Willie Nelson, Dave Matthews with Farm Aid. You're keeping the family farm in the farm because it's publicly known there's a labor shortage. Farmers are having a very hard time attracting talent and retaining talent. And here you are, you're innovating, you're introducing a new product that can allow them to farm. That's very, very powerful.
Yeah, thank you. It's super exciting. And not only can it help them, just manage the labor challenge, but it also can help them manage asset utilization and timing, because now it has the ability to run 24/7. The human body, right? Farmers go so hard in these 6 to 8 week windows in spring and fall. The human body cannot go, 24/7. And so now autonomy can also pick up more hours in the day to help improve the timeliness of the job, which ultimately leads to more yield and growing more food.
It leads to higher profits and lower costs, which will help that farmer throughout. So let's an example, Mr. and Mrs. Farmer, the tractor's out there running in the field and they're having a family dinner. How do they operate the tractor? Does Mr. Farmer or Mrs. Farmer get a note on their phone, okay, this field is done, going to the next field? How does that work?
Yeah, no, great question. And so as I mentioned earlier, right, we focus on in-field autonomy. And to start, right, John Deere has really been innovating from what we call precision agriculture in the last 20 years. And that is where, as you talk to Al Savage, right, our GPS technology and what we call like our guidance products, AutoTrack, really is the basis for how we developed autonomy. And so you have to have a field boundary or a geofence, so we know where it's safe to operate this equipment inside of a farmer's field. So that's the basis. So as a farmer drives the tractor to the field, they select the boundary. They do some quick setup in the tractor on the command center for that job. It can take 60 seconds is the amount of setup that they have to do. And then they step out of the cab and pull out their smartphone, connect to John Deere Operations Center mobile, and from there they can start the job, and then that's how they continue to monitor the job, stop it, make remote adjustments. Also, they now for the first time can see live video from any of our 6 stereo cameras that are on this new autonomous 8R. And so there's all kinds of technology that one ties the John Deere's Precision Ag suite together into one seamless product. But then we also add, more enhancements to the current tech to give them true field context and true controllability of the equipment now from your smartphone via John Deere Operations Center mobile. So as Mr. and Mrs. Farmer are sitting there having dinner, if there's an operational decision that needs to be made, like say there's something unexpected is in the field, they're going to get a push notification, be able to open up their cell phone, and maybe they don't want to interrupt their dinner to remove that obstacle in the field. So they'll be able to just choose to give the system permission to route around an object and keep doing the job. And then they can go back later and remove that object and clean up the field.
It's game changing. I mean, look at it from a quality of life perspective.
Absolutely, right. And it really allows you then to focus on other things while the job is getting done in the background, right? So farmers today, during spring and fall, right, and really anytime throughout the growing season, they feel tremendous pressure and stress that if they're not there in the tractor cab, the job isn't getting done. And so this is for the first time for them, allows them to know the job is getting done, be able to remotely monitor it on their cell phone, but yet be able to go do something else.
Stress is important. It's am I going to get this job done? Am I going to be out there all night? You lower the stress, which in theory, in practicality, very frank with you, can lower the healthcare cost for the farm and for those employees because the stress level's not there. It has a long-term positive impact on the farm, but a long-term positive impact on health for society globally. So they're operating everything through the John Deere Operations Center mobile. Does that become the nervous center, the central core of farm of the future, where John Deere, if you want to use a Lego analogy, can add on another block, or you want to use a tech analogy, pull in from this API? Does that become like that central hub of the farm of the future?
Yeah, absolutely it does. And it's not only Operations Center mobile, but it's also our web application as well. And so, what we revealed in 2022, we'll have a limited number of autonomous systems out there on farmers' fields. But then as we think about going forward to the future, not only do we expect that farmers will have one piece of autonomous equipment, but they might be running multiple pieces of autonomous equipment at the same time on their farm. And so it'll be a mix of controlling a specific piece of equipment from your mobile device, as well as you'll see us bring enhancements to our Operations Center on the web that'll really allow you to kind of manage your entire farming operation, say from that home farm office, as well as add other views to see on a larger scale, where is my multiple pieces of equipment, start to manage logistics that way, and then making decisions on how to optimize productivity, what job to do next, what field to do next, through both web and mobile. So more to come for sure.
Is there a limit if you let's see Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, or South Dakota? Is there a limit for those larger farms of how many autonomous tractors can run at once, or is it just restricted by the amount of land that the farmer needs to farm?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's really a grower preference on how they want to size equipment and how many pieces of, how many either tractors, combine, sprayer that they want to manage in order to cover their acres. But what we did, just to be from a tech standpoint, what we introduced here or revealed in 2022 is one autonomous tractor operating in the field at any given time. But John Deere already has technology where we do what we call coverage map sharing, or allowing multiple machines to work in the field at the same time. So you can see as we go forward here into 2023 and beyond, right? We will enable autonomy to follow that same suit, where you could have multiple pieces of equipment jointly doing path planning and job optimization together in the field. And so then not only could you have multiple machines in a field, but you could have multiple autonomous machines in your fleet in a number of fields that you're managing.
You're enabling the farmers to build the farms of the future. That's clearly what it is.
Thank you. Yeah, we believe so, right? And if you think about some of our automation technology, like we just introduced See & Spray Ultimate here in the last couple of days, that's really making the equipment superhuman. In addition to then, right, we're also introducing technology that can allow the driver to step out of the cab. And so what starts to get really exciting then, as you think about just those two pieces of tech we introduced here in 2022, is as they start to come together, right, what does the future really look like?
See and Spray is great. I mean, that's going to have a big positive impact. And when you really dive into how impactful that technology is from an optimization standpoint, it's really powerful. Will that technology eventually be integrated into the autonomous tractor?
Absolutely, it could be, right? We're going to listen to our farmers and understand where they want to take autonomy next, right? We started in fall tillage because that's where farmers have a tremendous amount of labor pressure. They're not only trying to harvest the grain, right? They have to manage a combine, a grain cart in the field. There's on-highway semis to remove the grain from the field, either going to a bin site or to market, in addition to then doing the job of residue incorporation in the fall. So we started there because that's what farmers asked us to help them manage that labor crunch and time crunch. So we're continuing to talk to farmers as farmers actually see and get this type of technology for the first time. It's really also opening up their eyes of where they would like to see it applied next. And so the conversations, I'll call it before they've actually seen our autonomous 8R, and then after they've used it, controlled this 40,000 pound machine from their smartphone, it really, really gets the gears turning really quickly around, all right, how can I now start to farm differently if I had this technology? And so we're getting some awesome feedback and insights where farmers would like us to enable this.
What are some of those insights? The farmers come up with really cool ideas. You're like, okay, this is really cool. We can do this. This is a scalable market that we can commercialize.
Yeah, I mean, what we heard and where you see us taking this technology to start, right? This is a tremendous amount of trust that farmers have to place really in John Deere and in our technology for them to step out of the tractor that they own and allow it to run autonomously in the field. So the way we approached our initial product going to market is to build it on top of an existing tractor that the farmer already owns, right? So it's a retrofit style technology. In addition, we're using the precision ag features that they've been leveraging for 20 years, right? The tractors have been self-driving for 20 years. We've had connectivity from machine to cloud for the last several years. And so we're making an incremental step to say, go retrofit this tech on your current fleet, step out of the cab for the first time. And so you'll see us enable more tractors, more implements, more jobs in the short term to really allow farmers to get comfortable with what an autonomous operation might look like without asking them, say, to go buy an expensive, all new piece of equipment that might have, say, a limited functionality, right? A tractor is really like a Swiss Army knife on the farm. It does many, many jobs. And so we started there, but what it starts to open up the idea of in the conversation is, is there new farming practices and new machine forms that would allow us to reduce compaction and really better optimize the job at farming because I no longer have to sit in that cab to execute the job. So that's what we'll continue to explore, and we'll look for that not only in-house, but we'll watch other startups in the space of what's going on going forward.
When John Deere, you roll out your autonomous tractor and you want to engage with farmers, and you want to build the most critical thing in autonomy, no matter what your vertical is trust. Do you bring the autonomous tractor to fairs that in Massachusetts, such as the Big E, that has a large agriculture impact, or to the Iowa State Fair where there's a large agriculture, and demo the tractor for those farmers so they can see it in the real world and kind of they can put their hands on it and touch it and experience it? Is that how you build that trust initially?
What we've done to date is previous to the Consumer Electronics Show, we've been on a limited number of farms, right, to really control the technology before it was public. And then we were bringing a number of farmers, to those cooperators to let them see it and experience it. Then part of the reason we're approaching this technology rollout differently here with autonomy is, we revealed it. It's not available for mass production, but it's available in a limited release. That allows us to open up that conversation publicly with growers all over not only the US, but really the world, as well as then now this fall, we will ship units to farmers to use. We'll partner with the local John Deere dealers as well to get more eyes on the equipment to gain more feedback. And so you'll see us continue that then as we go into 23 and beyond, as there'll be more units available to start to really grow our geographic footprint for local demonstrations and local feedback. And it'll be in partnership with our John Deere dealers.
Shipping in the fall, that's a big accomplishment. I give you a lot of credit because you see, let's just call Acme Company makes an announcement, be here in 5 years. 5 years turns into 6 years, turns into 7 years. John Deere makes the announcement, it'll be here in the fall. Job well done.
Thank you. We're super excited, and our farmers are excited. So it's been a fun journey, and it's been a fast journey, right? Like I said, we really got serious in 2019 and started developing the technology really in-house along with not only like our tractor engineering group, our intelligent solutions group, but also then in our acquisition of Blue River Technology. So we've developed the autonomy in-house, and we're ready to go.
Another acquisition you made, we had in Gino and Aubrey on a previous podcast, is Bearflag. They're really cool, great founding story coming out of CMU. How will Bearflag's technology be integrated into the overall Deere autonomy stack?
Yeah, absolutely a great question. Phenomenal company and a ton of talent out there in California inside the Bearflag organization. And so one, we were on the same mission, right? So it's super exciting as we truly start to collaborate and work together. And they've also taken a little bit different approach to autonomy, right? John Deere, what we revealed at Consumer Electronics Show, our backbone is stereo cameras and computer vision to become the eyes around the equipment and safeguard that equipment. Bearflag has invested in some LiDAR and radar technology and become experts in that. If you just step back and think about it from a John Deere standpoint, really the vast amount of customers and jobs that we serve around the world that are all asking for autonomy, and those jobs there's a lot of similarities, but there's differences, right? You could be in standing crop, you could be in occluded situations, right? Where stereo cameras, right? If a human eye cannot see it, neither can a stereo camera. So if you think about it, as we start to go into these different jobs, you'll see us start to integrate some tech out of Bearflag into our autonomy stack. And so we're going to go forward with developing one autonomy stack that'll interface with Deere vehicles, but it'll have a modular approach where we can add different sensing modalities to that autonomy stack depending on the job that we're trying to do or the machine form we're bolted up to.
Could that also apply, since Deere is a global company, different geographies, different climates? One might be a more of a rockier terrain, one might be more of a soily terrain. Will you add the components based on the terrain and the weather?
Yeah, absolutely, right. And we agricultural all around the world, right? It's generally a dusty environment. Some jobs are dustier than others, right? And so you'll see us focus on essentially the initial technology costs. We chose stereo cameras and that approach with our GPUs to really manage cost in the initial product. Right. And then as we go into, I'll call it a more complex job, you'll see us add other sensor packages that then will meet that need.
It's really smart. And I could see a point in the future where if you localize the product to a certain region, just based on the demands of that region, that becomes interesting. When you're building the autonomy stack, is dust a big problem? Jason Erschwitz from Luminar talked to him quite a bit, and he talks about in Florida the love bug problem. So when these love bugs come, they hit your LiDAR in Florida, the vehicle can't see. And that was a challenge that Luminar had to figure out, him and Austin had to overcome. Is dust one of those challenges you're building your autonomy stack just based on the conditions that your vehicles are going to run that you had to overcome and solve for?
Yeah, absolutely. Dust is present in agricultural, essentially almost in every job, right? And so we've had to understand, how do we train on dust? How do we work around dust? And there's going to be some conditions where it's just an extremely windy day, and if you get the wrong wind, right, the system will not be able to safely see, right? And so early on, we'll be able to automatically detect those kind of blackout conditions, and the equipment will be stopped. In addition, though, bugs at night, right? Or even think about birds. Birds kind of get flocked to fresh soil. And so our system, we've had to essentially train it on what bugs look like. We've had to train it on what birds look like, because it will stop for a bird flying in front of the tractor. And so those are just some of the, I'll call it the unexpected things that we've had to train on and learn so we can continue to work out in the field.
You've had some unique edge cases, it sounds like.
Absolutely, right. And the team has done an awesome job as they've developed our approach from a CVML standpoint of really, because there's so many unknowns, right, from an autonomy standpoint, we've actually developed our system where we focus on navigable terrain, right? And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for common things that you see in a farming landscape: navigable terrain, trees, sky, fence rows, things like that. And so then we're looking for exceptions that might be in that field, right? What is an unexpected large object, human, vehicle that is not navigable terrain? And so that way we can account or we can be safe around these unpredictable things that might show up in a field. So something might blow in from a road, or something might just show up in a farmer's field that they didn't place there. But we want to make sure we can detect it and stop for it every time.
When you look at birds, there's big birds, there's little birds, and then you see a lot of hawks around farm. How was that training the system? Say, okay, this is a little dove bird, and this is a big hawk. Did you have to kind of zone in and figure out those problems from the you went through the whole ecosystem of birds per se?
No, and let me talk a little bit too around what we've trained it on, as well as how we've developed the system to account for some of these unknowns. So one, as we look at the job that we revealed, we're using a John Deere 2430 chisel plow, and it has what we call 12-inch shank spacing, or there's 12 inches between some ground engaging components. And so first and foremost, right, we're looking for objects that are 12 inches and larger in diameter, because we want to make sure that we stop for those things, because they could get caught up in the tool. But second, what we've also developed the system is we want to give farmers the time back, right? We talked early on around how do we let that farmer go do something else, improve their quality of life, focus in other places. And so we've actually developed our autonomy system with John Deere in the loop. And so anytime we come to a stop in the field, Deere will be the quote unquote first line of defense. And so if we see a bird, right, and we didn't necessarily recognize it as a bird, we will have folks in the loop that can classify it as a bird, restart the system remotely, and it'll continue doing the job. And ultimately, then that farmer is not interrupted because it really wasn't an operational decision. Same thing of if you think about on highway, off highway, right? The penalty to stop in a farmer's field is really productivity. It's not safety, right? We're going 8, 12, 14 miles an hour in the field. And if we come to a stop, we're not going to get rear-ended or cause an accident. And so that is why we developed the system for Deere in the Loop. We can take a safety-first approach, have the Deere folks kind of look at any of those stops, be able to essentially handle false positives, and restart the system without the farmer ever having to get involved. And then if there is, an operational decision that needs to be made, right, we'll send that push notification through John Deere Operations Center Mobile, and then the farmer engages from there.
It's a very smart approach. You're right about the safety elements. I could see that. I've been through Iowa and Nebraska and the Midwest, and sometimes you just see one tractor on the field.
Yep.
And then maybe occasionally, my daughter thinks it's cool, you see a scarecrow. But you don't have to worry about the scarecrow jumping in front of the tractor to see if it will stop.
That's right.
Unless we're in the Wizard of Oz.
That's right. That's right.
So the farmer, Mr. and Mrs. Farmer in there having dinner, it raises the question of how long can the tractor run before it has to be refueled?
Yeah, great question. And so ultimately this equipment that John Deere has about a 10 to 12 hour fuel window. So, every 10 to 12 hours, if they're in a large field, they would need to go out and service that equipment, right? Refill it with fuel and then let it resume the job. As well as then they'll be able to monitor the job progress when the tractor is getting close to being done with the field, right? We'll send them a notification just so they can help with logistical planning. And then once it completes the field, it'll go back to the field edge. The farmer can pick up their autonomous system, move it to the next field, start the next job.
Basically 2 fuel changes and you can run it for 24 hours essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
That's great. So you can go to bed at 8 o'clock. You wake up at 5 or 6. And the tractor's still doing. You're like, whoa, this was wonderful. This is great.
Exactly.
Putting this all together, in your opinion, what is the future of ag tech?
Yeah, that's a really exciting and fun question. If you just think about like how far we've come in the last 20 years from the introduction of guidance, right? And really the ability to do self-driving tractors and what's that it has enabled from reducing inputs, reducing overlap, right? Wasted seed, chemical fertilizer. You see what we can do with See & Spray Ultimate of actually now being able to start to truly see these hundreds of thousands of plants every second as, say, a self-propelled sprayer goes across the field. You couple in the ability to run that equipment autonomously. Ultimately what I think it starts to look like from a future of ag is we can truly start to micromanage millions of plants at scale. And so maybe that requires some equipment changes. Maybe it's the existing machine forms, right? We'll learn that together with farmers. But ultimately what I think you'll start to see is we can truly from start to finish micromanage, millions of plants at scale to ensure like every seed has the optimal growing environment and what it needs from a nutrient and resource standpoint to produce the most yield, right? Or ultimately the most food for the world. And so to me, that's what's truly exciting about it. And we'll see innovations come not only in the form of electrification, new ways of controlling hydraulics, liquid, et cetera, as well as computer vision and machine learning, which will really be the backbone of the next evolution.
The new tagline for John Deere could be, nothing optimizes a farm like a John Deere.
I love it. That's a great one. Absolutely, it could be.
I'll take a marketing royalty for that. But
there you go. Perfect.
But it just seems that throughout everything John Deere's doing, it all revolves around doing good for the farmer, but the core to make that happen is optimization. Is that a fair statement?
I think it absolutely is. And I think the other thing that should be said, right, is not only are we trying to do good for the farmer, right, but farmers are focused on doing good for the land that they farm, right? farmers are extremely environmental conscientious because, like you said, right, it's a family farm. It's handed down from generation to generation. And farmers truly understand that they need to leave essentially the ground, the soil in a better condition than when they got it from their father. And so it goes kind of hand in hand of not only are we trying to optimize and add value to farmers, but through that, they also expect us to help them become more environmentally sustainable.
Farmers care. It's passed down from
absolutely
from generation to generation. Reflecting on this, how has farming changed over the last decade?
Good question. I mean, ultimately, if we think about it, and I'll just start in 2000, right? Every acre was essentially manually driven, right? And so you were physically exhausted from focusing on trying to drive the tractor straight. Because we've enabled self-driving technology and then continued to add other automation where, we can turn the tractor around at the end of the row. We can ensure there's no overlap or waste of seeds and chemicals through some of this automation technology. What you've seen is the physical stress level, right, of doing the job has come down on farmers. And then while they're in the tractor seat, right, they're able to start to make better management decisions. And so it's truly allowed them to go from focusing on, hey, how do I make a best decision from my farm, to then how do I make the best decision for this field, because I now have data coming off of each individual field through the connectivity and John Deere Operations Center, to now you're also today starting to see farming decisions made at I'll call it a zone level, or you can do prescription farming inside of a farm field. So you're seeing this window of management shrink over the last 20 years. And then, as I just mentioned, right, to the future, I think ultimately becomes plant by plant management with the precision technology that we'll introduce.
And it all ties into optimization. So you started in 2000 optimizing this and optimizing it. And you just keep optimizing it. Like the Energizer Bunny, you just keep optimizing and optimizing.
Absolutely, right. There's a tremendous opportunity to just to increase food production, as you said at the start, and that's coming through optimization of the current ground that farmers are farming.
You've seen a lot, Joe. You've been at Deere 16 years. That's a healthy run. If you're a baseball player, you're getting ready for retirement. That's a long run. How did you first become interested in ag?
Yeah, so fun question. So I grew up on what John Deere would consider a hobby farm. My parents both came from family farms, and we grew up in the country with raising a few animals. So I always grew up around agriculture. And then as I went to college, I got my undergrad in mechanical engineering and really looked around at where I could apply those skills. Seeing John Deere tractors essentially all my life had me interested in Deere. Had the opportunity to start with an internship and then became hooked. So the people that I get to work with at John Deere it's a tremendous amount of talent, and it just became an addicting environment. So I started off, really doing, I'll call it manufacturing and operations jobs, and then started getting closer to product development, and then ultimately closer to the intersection of interfacing with farmers as well as product development teams on what technology do they need. How do we translate that to our development teams to go build new products and new features? And really for the last kind of 7 or 8 years, just been working on that intersection of talking to farmers about some of their problems and their challenges, working with our engineering teams on what's possible, right? Looking at technology and say, how could we apply this to this farmer problem? And also I have the opportunity then to take not only that new tech we talked about, I get to go take it to their farms, let them use it, get the feedback, right, of is it solving the problem? What changes do we need to make? And so it's an incredibly fun cycle to be on both the front end and the commercialization aspect of this new tech.
Having grown up on a hobby farm, and when you meet with farmers and go to farms, does that help right off the bat start to establish trust because you have that family background of coming up on a farm and says, oh, but here's not a corporate sales guy. Here's a gentleman that actually grew up on a farm. Does that help build that trust?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And then my wife and I are dual Deere, right? So we're committed to John Deere. And then actually in 2018 we started our own little farming operation, super small scale here in Illinois, but we've been growing that. And so that for me too, as a product manager, I get to use our precision ag products, right? I get to go work with our partner on the land that my wife and I owned and run the equipment. And so that also helps establish trust, because I'm seeing the same problems they have. I'm using the same technology that they have available. And so, we can get to a common conversation pretty quickly.
It goes to the whole, the Google thing, eat your own dog food, but yet you're not eating dog food. You're growing agriculture products. What are you growing on your land?
So we are here just outside of Moline, Illinois, where John Deere headquarters are. We're a corn and soybean operation.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Nothing beats good corn. I'm here in Florida in the summer. We get Everglades corn, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, the spring or the summer sweet corn season, right, is the best time of year for sure.
This is great. So you're sitting there, you're building autonomy at John Deere, you're using the product, you're running your farm with your wife. What's John Deere's future for autonomy? Was this little future hatched on your farm one day? You're out there on your tractor with your wife and said, "Wait a second, there's something really big here."
No. It didn't start with us by any means, right? It actually, we started with the conversation around, right? This was designed from farmers' requests, right? So as John Deere has continued, all across our organization enterprise, right? As we continue to talk to farmers, right? We knew the labor challenges and the timing challenges were there. And then really it became, as we acquired Blue River Technology in 2017, now all of a sudden we had this internal capability to do computer vision. And so we've always had the guidance products, right? To actually navigate this equipment out in the field. But what we haven't had prior to Blue River was really the capability to essentially to bring that context of what's going on around that job. And so as we were in the early stages of working together, we also kind of asked ourselves, like, hey, where else could this be applied? Autonomy quickly rose to the top there in 2019, as I mentioned, and we formed a team and then got after it.
Beautiful. You're constantly innovating. You're looking to the market for solutions to improve the John Deere product, but then your end customer to improve the farmer's experience. Very powerful. And Joe, as we look to wrap up this insightful, interesting conversation, I hope during the summer you can send me some Indian corn, a late summer corn one day, because it's delicious. What would you like our listeners to take away with them?
Yeah, I think for me a takeaway here is, the opportunities in agriculture are tremendous. Farmers are incredible stewards of the land, and they're focused on being the most productive as they can with the land that they have. And then if you think about it, right, the cool part is we've all need to eat, right? We should all care about a farmer being able to grow more food and grow it in a sustainable way. And then it just opens the door for innovation, right? And so as you see more technology getting developed in adjacent spaces, right, the opportunity to then intersect some technology that might be developed on the West Coast for a different vertical, how can that be applied to agricultural? And then really the opportunity here is endless. As I said, I think the future is plant by plant management, and it'll take innovation across the board to truly enable that.
I love the line, farmers are stewards of the land. They're doing it for their family. They're doing it for society, to put yummy food in our tummies, because today is tomorrow, tomorrow is today, and the future is autonomous tractors. Joe, thank you so much for coming on SAE Tomorrow Today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to SAE Tomorrow Today. If you've enjoyed this episode and would like to hear more, please kindly rate, review, and let us know what topics you'd like for us to explore next. Be sure to join us next week when leaders from Borg Warner share how they are accelerating the world's transformation to e-mobility and carbon neutrality in the electric vehicle market.
SAE International makes no representations as to the accuracy of the information presented in this podcast. The information and opinions are for general information only. SAE International does not endorse, approve, recommend, or certify any information, product, process, service, or organization presented or mentioned in this podcast.